This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidu. It's Thursday, September 12th. This is Africa 54. A dispute between Robert Mugabe's family and the government clouds the funeral and burial plans of the former Zimbabwean president. A Malawian pageant shines a light on albinism in the country's first ever pageant for albinos. And we'll tell you how technology is helping farmers in Ghana improve their yields and income. We begin our broadcast today with uncertainty hovering over the date and location of the funeral and burial for former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe. A Mugabe family spokesman said Thursday the longtime leader will be buried next week without mentioning specifics, but the government is planning for a state funeral on Saturday and a burial on Sunday. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Harare, where Mugabe's body arrived from Singapore.
Home at last. The body of Robert Mugabe was somberly welcomed Wednesday to its final resting place, the country he ruled for 37 years, Zimbabwe. The famously strident leader vowed he would die in office. He didn't. Instead, he was forced to resign in 2017 by his deputy, who had the support of the military. Mugabe died last week at a hospital in Singapore. Thousands of Harare residents awaited the arrival of the body. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has declared a period of national mourning until the burial.
The entire nation of Zimbabwe, our people, across the board, are grieved and are in mourning because the light which led us to independence is no more. But his works, his ideology will continue to guide this nation.
The burial is scheduled for Sunday. And his legacy is similarly in flux. Was he a liberation hero, or a villain who destroyed the nation's economy, or both? Either way, one thing is clear. For Zimbabwe, this is the end of an era. Anita Powell, VOA News, Harare.
A train derailment in southeastern Congo Thursday may have killed up to 50 people in the province of Tanganyika, according to the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Steve Mbikai. But the province governor, Zoe Kabila, reported a lower estimate, saying 10 people were killed and 30 injured. Kabila says 3 of the train's cars tumbled off the tracks at 3 a.m. local time near the town of Mayibaridi. Deadly transport accidents are common in the Democratic Republic of Congo due to poor infrastructure and a lack of regulation. South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar are pledging to resolve all outstanding issues delaying the formation of a unity government in November. Following their meeting Wednesday at South Sudan State House in Juba, both men said they are making progress, but no agreements were announced.
We are progressing very well in our discussion.
Our discussion here, we have made important progress.
The peace deal mandates that the transitional constitutional and laws that govern the national security agencies, the Army and the National Police Service be amended by Parliament ahead of the formation of a unity government. But the country's lawmakers are on a 2-month recess that began 2 weeks ago. Civil society activists are warning that failure to amend the laws before November would affect the formation of a unity government. Some Rwandans who used to be wildlife poachers have turned into conservationists. Eugene Owimana reports on the Gorilla Guardians village located near Volcanoes National Park in northern Rwanda.
Felicie Kawati sings about the importance of gorilla conservation. You wouldn't know from his lyrics that he used to hunt gorillas and other wild animals in Volcano National Park. He was a poacher for 30 years and served 4 months in jail for it. Then one day, a buffalo killed his brother.
We were hunting together, arriving in the forest. He and my other friends took another way, and unfortunately, a buffalo killed him right away.
After talking with the conservationist, Kabati had a change of heart and joined their side. He now makes a living at Gorilla Guardians Village, where he plays traditional musical instruments for tourists. His story is similar to those of other members of this cooperative, like Mukanheri Venansi. She used to go poaching with her husband.
My husband used to carry spears, me, a machete with a bag to put in the meat of animals that we killed. But with training and this project, we have changed our mindset.
Now she refers to poaching as a serious crime. She works here instead, making traditional baskets for tourists. Visitors go gorilla trekking, but also support projects that aim to both employ Rwandans and promote conservation.
What they've done here, what they've created here, is an employment and opportunity for a lot of people that would have previously used the forest for livelihood and in turn, let's say, subsistence living.
Government figures show conservation efforts is boosting tourism revenue.
The support of the local communities, whom I have had the opportunity to express our thanks to, and also made sure that they benefit from this good cooperation.
In a bid to boost conservation and make Rwandans feel more connected to wildlife, Rwanda began an annual gorilla naming ceremony in 2015. At this year's event, 25 baby mountain gorillas were named, bringing the total number to 281. Eugene Uwimana for VOA News, Musanze, Rwanda.
Malawi has crowned Miss and Mr. Albinism during the country's first ever beauty pageant for albinos. The Association of People with Albinism organized the Lilongwe event as part of its efforts to destroy myths which have led to attacks on albinos in Malawi and other African countries. Lamek Masina has more.
Beauty contestants with albinism exuding their wealth in a first ever competition in Malawi, in a country where they face stigma and the threat of attack because of how they look. Some 20 contestants demonstrated how albinism can be beautiful.
I'm here because I've ever experienced the threats. Even my live friends I was burning to, they even said that I'm money. This has affected my family because they are there just to protect me.
The visiting second princess of Zimbabwe's 2019 albinism beauty pageant urged Malawians with albinism to start living beyond the threats.
Refuse to be defined by what people think or see about you, but rather define yourself. Tell yourself what you're capable of. Dream big and always make it happen.
People with albinism in Malawi have been attacked because of false beliefs that their body parts, if used in magical potions, can bring good luck and wealth. More than 24 have been killed since 2014 and more than 100 are missing. The winners of the Miss and Mr. Albinism title offered to join efforts to end the attacks.
What I'm going to do now, firstly, is to bring awareness to communities, especially the local communities that hold negative attitudes, myths and misconceptions about persons with albinism.
I'm going to stand still and help persons with albinism, first of all by empowering persons with albinism, making them to trust in themselves, trust their ideas, believe in themselves.
Pageant organizers plan to hold the event every year. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Lilongwe.
In Nigeria, where thousands of people living with albinism are constantly discriminated against, body shamed, stigmatized, or even killed, one albino is breaking the norm in the country's movie industry. His popularity is a glimmer of hope to many others, as Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Damilola Ogunsi, popularly known by his stage name The Goldfish, is an albino on a mission. Despite suffering intense discrimination as a teenager, Ogunsi says he found his voice in acting.
My journey started when I was a young boy. You know, I remember that the first thing my parents told me that when I was 5 years old, they took me to a party, and one way or the other, while the party was going on, I think they dropped the mic and I found my way there and I picked the mic and I started talking, and they were like, you know, I think they wanted to stop me, and someone was like, no, let him talk, let him roll. And, you know, I was basically talking, and I think I entertained them a little bit.
Ogunsi gave up his nearly decade-long banking career to focus on movies. Now, he frequently appears on Nigerian movie screens, though he says he's got even bigger dreams.
In my head, I'm James Bond, I'm Batman, I'm Iron Man. Those are the kind of roles I'm dreaming about playing, and I'm training myself, I'm working. You know, I've started hitting the gym, starting to work out, because trying to build my Hollywood body, because those are things that I want to do, those are places I want to go, and eventually start producing my own films.
Some 2 million Nigerians live with albinism, according to the Abuja-based Albino Foundation. Many face discrimination and marginalization on a daily basis. A few, like Ogunsi, rise above the societal bias against their condition. But the situation is serious, says Damian Evam of the Albino Foundation.
There are villages and communities where persons with albinism or children with albinism, once a mother delivers a child with albinism, they'll be killed. In Abuja here, there are about 60 communities in Abuja that is happening.
The Albino Foundation was set up in 2006 to address these problems. So far, some progress is being made.
And the Albino Foundation was created to debunk the wrong information that persons have about persons with albinism, and to create an equal opportunity for every person with albinism to thrive in the society.
The government adopted a national policy on albinism in 2012 to help albinos enter the Nigerian mainstream. As that effort continues, albinos like Ogunsi are getting ahead. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
The United States commemorated the 18th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks with ceremonies at the 3 crash sites. In his remarks at the Pentagon, President Donald Trump praised first responders, but also reignited controversy about where he was on the day of the attacks. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump laid a wreath at the Pentagon in remembrance of the victims of the September 11th attacks.
God bless America.
To each of you, the First Lady and I are united with you in grief.
Vice President Mike Pence was in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, honoring the passengers and crew of Flight 93 who fought the terrorists and brought down the plane that was headed to the White House.
But America took the fight back to our enemies on that very same day. Not on some foreign battlefield, but right here.
Oh, say, can you see? Remembrance ceremonies were also held in New York, where the 2 planes brought down the Twin Towers 18 years ago. But during his remarks praising first responders, the president reignited an old controversy about what he did on the day of the attack.
Soon after, I went down to Ground Zero with men who worked for me to try to help in any little way that we could.
Trump has often claimed he was at Ground Zero on 9/11 alongside firefighters and police officers, but first responders have disputed the account. During his campaign in 2015, Trump also falsely claimed that thousands of people were cheering in New Jersey as the buildings were coming down, referring to what he calls the heavy Arab population in the state.
They recognize that some people did something.
In April, he used videos of 9/11 to denounce Democratic House member Ilhan Omar for remarks she made during a speech on civil rights and Muslims in America, which her critics say downplayed the 9/11 attacks. In July, Trump signed the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund, a bipartisan law to continue to provide compensation for individuals who suffered physical harm or later died as a result of 9/11. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
I am Sheikha Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Forget endless pictures of cute babies. Babies are now getting their own smart cameras to snap photographs and film videos of you. France-based Baby's has created a wearable smart baby camera that captures family members interacting with young ones. When the videos are transferred to a computer, Baby's web interface classifies them using facial and emotional recognition. And there's no reason to turn it on. The camera is equipped with motion detection, so it starts recording when people appear in the frame. Next up, how much can you tell about someone by their walk? Quite a lot using artificial intelligence. Germany-based Lindera has created a smartphone app that helps caregivers analyze an elderly person's walk and suggests how likely they are to fall. All that's required is a short video of a person's gait and a quick psychosocial survey on the smartphone app. The artificial intelligence algorithm then produces a mobility analysis report in a matter of minutes. And finally, while private aviation was once the reserve of the super wealthy, more opportunities to cut costs by flight sharing are now emerging. Wingly is an online platform which enables private pilots to reduce the costs of their flights by splitting them with passengers, who in turn get to experience a day trip on a light aircraft. Wingly's website states that all of its pilots are required to provide copies of their current license and medical certificate, as well as show their flight hours, indicating their total flying experience. And that's what's trending today.
Splitting time between two cities and work and home is daunting. Add to that, working 24 hours a day for thousands of bosses. That's the life of a U.S. congressman as he works to meet the needs of thousands of constituents and his political party's platform. In our project, Climbing the Hill, VOA's Caroline Presutti shows us how Republican Pete Stauber of Minnesota deals with local priorities that tie into national issues.
Who is Pete Stauber?
For my kids, I'm still dad. And for my wife, I'm still husband and Pete. But the title of congressman is kind of surreal.
He is U.S. Representative Pete Stauber, a retired police officer at his new job in Washington. Back in Duluth, Minnesota, his other job is hearing from his 660,000 constituents. Many are demanding solutions for issues that resonate nationally, like immigration. 9 out of 10 people in Stauber's Minnesota district are white. That's high compared to other districts. The 8th district is mostly rural.
One of our concerns is hiring people and the importance of the Hispanic worker and trying to get an immigration policy that works. The present system obviously is broke.
Unemployment in the Duluth area is lower than 4%, so Miller relies on migrant workers to survive. Stauber must balance the needs of his constituents with his Republican Party's hard line on immigration.
I support legal immigration. Our country was built on legal immigration, and legal immigrants still enhance this country today.
Congressman Stauber flew to the Arizona-Mexico border to see the crisis for himself.
This is where the illegal immigration is happening. The country of Mexico is about maybe 75, 80 feet across the river.
Stauber's district is 3,200 kilometers from that border, along the banks of Lake Superior. And this is also Stauber country. Wide open spaces for farms, forests, and mines. A proposed copper mine. Stauber's first bill would allow the mine in Minnesota's Iron Range. It would process copper inside this old steel plant. The company Polymet says its mine will create about 1,000 jobs. But using forest land for mining is also a controversial national issue.
Polymet met or exceeded every environmental, state and federal standard that we have, and we can do it safely, keeping our waters and our forests pristine.
But upstream of those waters lives the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, an Indian tribe. Kevin Dupuy is its chairman.
We take a look at a holding pond that would be there at least 500 years. So with the native perspectives of the indigenous people of the land, especially with the Ojibwe people, we look at things that we have to look up for 7 generations to come. So there'd be 7 generations of people, not just native people, but non-native people also, that are going to be dealing with a toxic pond.
The bill is now in a congressional subcommittee, which will decide if it goes to the entire House floor for a vote. Carolyn Persutti, VOA News, Duluth, Minnesota.
After the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, the United States created a terrorism screening database that collected the names of suspected and known terrorists so they could be kept from entering the country. But as a U.S. federal judge recently ruled, the list is unconstitutional. Sabah Shah Khan has the details.
The Department of Homeland Security's terrorist watch list is believed to contain over 1 million names of foreigners and American citizens. It does not prevent individuals from boarding flights, but can impose restrictions on their travel. A group of 23 Muslim Americans sued the government over the list in April 2019, arguing they could not adequately challenge their inclusion in the list. This month, a federal court in its ruling declared the list unconstitutional.
Next, we'll be hearing from Hassan Shibli, one of our 23 brave plaintiffs.
Hassan Shibli was one of the plaintiffs in this case.
I've been waiting 15 years for this victory. For 15 years, been harassed and targeted by the government, even though I've done nothing wrong. Treated like a second-class citizen, stigmatized, profiled, harassed, treated like a criminal.
Critics of the database, including the Council on Islamic Relations and American Civil Liberties Union, say the list has long had vague standards, been cloaked in secrecy, and included names of people who should never have been on it. Still, a number of U.S. lawmakers consider the list critical for American security. Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
We are facing a global war on terror. We are facing, in particular, radical Islamic terrorists who have murdered Americans, who have murdered our allies, and we need to be clear-eyed and vigilant, preventing terrorism and stopping terrorism before it happens.
Federal Court Judge Anthony Trenga said in his judgment that the program in its current form does not meet the due process rights provided by the Constitution to a U.S. citizen. Lena Masri of CARE says if someone's name appears on the list, even if it's taken off, the record still exists in the database, and there is no known way to remove the name.
So having records expunged in the terror screening database of everybody who's been listed in the watch list that is removed from the watch list, including our clients, it needs to occur.
The judge's ruling means that both the defendants and the plaintiffs must propose changes to the database program. A final ruling is expected later this month. Sabah Shah Khan, VOA News, Alexandria, Virginia.
Many of Ghana's small-scale farmers are now using drones for crop surveillance in a bid to increase yields and incomes. Farming cooperatives are embracing the technology as a step toward better efficiency. Some, however, feel the technology is too expensive and may shut out poor farmers. Sarah Kimani explains from Accra.
At the Kupong Rice Irrigation Scheme in Ghana, 28-year-old George Magitoi watches as his drone takes flight and begins its first task of the day, surveillance of the crops.
The one we're using is a multispectral enabled drone, so that's specific to agriculture, in that it's looking for pest, disease, irrigation issues, that kind of deal.
Magitoi was born and raised in the U.S., but his love for the African countryside and drones brought him here, where he is now leading the digital revolution in African agriculture.
So we typically work with farm cooperatives that maybe have, let's say, 300 smallholder farmers that come together, and through the cooperative, they're able to patronize our services.
His company is among those sponsored by the Dutch-based Technical Center for Agricultural and Rural Cooperation, CTA, in a bid to attract more young Africans to agriculture. CTA estimates that using modern technology like drones can earn African farmers an additional $2.6 billion every year.
We started this project on drone technology 3 years ago, and now we have 41 partner organizations, mainly private enterprises, in 21 countries.
However, not all farmers can afford the drones to watch over their crops.
It will help us a lot. But that one too, the problem is when you don't get money, you can't use it. Because it's something that they will come to the farm, they will charge before they will do the work.
Back in the rice fields, the surveillance is over, and it is time to spray pesticides with another drone. Within a few hours, the whole field has been covered. Previously, it would have taken a farmer and at least 5 laborers 5 days to cover a hectare. Drones are just one of the technologies that delegates at an agricultural summit in Accra are betting will help improve Africa's food security situation. Sarah Kimani for VOA News, Accra.
China has extended its latest gesture of goodwill Thursday in the ongoing trade dispute with the United States. The Asian nation announced that it is looking into buying U.S. agricultural goods such as pork and soybeans. Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesman Gao Feng says China welcomes goodwill actions from the White House and that China hopes the two sides will continue to create favorable conditions for the trade negotiations. President Donald Trump says he is postponing tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods as a gesture of goodwill. He says China asked for the delay in time for the nation's 70th anniversary on October 1st. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.